The events of today are going to be so horrifying that a cold shiver will run down your spine. This story will make you believe that something truly miraculous exists in this world. Your soul will tremble, so prepare your mind before watching the video, because today's journey is going to be very terrifying. Let's begin that dreadful story. Today's incident has been sent to us by one of our viewers named Zahid Hassan. I will present it to you exactly as he wrote it to me. Assalamu alaikum. I am a regular listener of yours. I heard this story today from one of my relatives. A terrifying ghost night, a horrifying experience. In a remote village in Bangladesh where the light of urban civilization barely reached, the village was named Shantipura. Although its name meant peaceful town, the village had been shrouded in deep mystery and silent fear for years. Right in the middle of the village was a large pond, known to the villagers as the Pond of Souls. The water of the pond was dark green, surrounded by dense forests and centuries-old giant trees whose branches leaned over the pond's water, creating an eerie darkness. Countless stories were prevalent in the village about this pond, each filled with fear and supernatural occurrences. It was said that a tragic incident had occurred in this pond centuries ago. A beautiful young woman named Bijli from the village Zamandar's house went missing mysteriously while fetching water from the pond. Her body was never found. Only her water pot and a piece of her sari were left on the pond's gut. Since then, the villagers began to believe that Bijli's soul was trapped in that pond, and on certain nights, she made her presence known. No one in the village would go near the pond at night, and even during the day they were afraid to go alone. Our story's protagonist, Akash, was a young researcher. He was researching supernatural phenomena and folklore. Having grown up in urban life, Akash did not believe in such superstitions. To him, these were merely imaginary stories born out of rural people's blind faith and fear. He became curious after hearing the prevalent stories about Shantipura's Pond of Souls and decided to solve the mystery himself. His aim was to scientifically analyze the incidents of the pond and prove that there was no supernatural power behind them, only some natural or human explanation. Akash set off for Shantipura with his friend Raju. Raju was the exact opposite of Akash. He was very timid and a strong believer in supernatural events. Akash had forced him to come along because he needed an assistant and a companion for this entire expedition. Upon reaching the outskirts of the village, they took shelter in an old house that an elderly villager had rented to them. The pond was visible from the house's window, which instilled a silent fear in Raju's mind. For the first few days, Akash explored the pond's surroundings, talked to locals, and tried to learn the village's history. The village elders had warned him not to go near the pond at night. They narrated Bijli's story in more detail, every word of which was filled with deep sorrow and fear. The belief in their eyes surprised Akash a little, but he did not deviate from his scientific mindset. He secretly chuckled, thinking how easily people fall prey to superstition. One night, Akash prepared for his experiments. He headed towards the pond ghat with his camera, sound recorder, and some modern sensors. Raju repeatedly warned him, "Akash, please don't go. What the villagers are saying might be true." But Akash was firm in his decision. He told Raju to stay at home and went to the pond alone. It was almost 11 at night. When Akash reached the pond ghat, an eerie silence prevailed all around. There was no sound other than the chirping of crickets and the distant howling of jackals. The faint moonlight filtered through the dense foliage of the trees, falling on the pond's water, creating a mysterious atmosphere. Akash set up his equipment and began taking pictures of the pond's water and the surrounding environment. He was trying to record some strange temperature changes in sound waves, which, according to him, could occur due to natural causes. After a while, Akash moved towards the north side of the pond with his camera, where there were dense bushes. He knew that villagers rarely came to this side, so the environment would be more undisturbed. As he made his way through the bushes, a strange sweet scent wafted into his nose. The scent was so intense as if thousands of jasmine flowers had bloomed together. Akash was somewhat surprised because there were no such flower plants in that area. He thought it might be the scent of some wildflower that intensified at night. He followed the scent and moved a little further. Suddenly, he saw an old banyan tree in front of him, whose branches extended over the pond's water. Underneath the tree were some old broken stone idols, which looked like there had been a temple or a place of worship here many years ago. When Akash shined his flashlight on the banyan tree trunk, he saw numerous alpina designs drawn on the tree, which had dried up, and some old red cinder and flower petals were scattered around. Akash became curious seeing all this. He took out his camera and started taking pictures. Suddenly, he felt as if someone was breathing down his neck. He quickly turned around but saw no one. He thought it was just his imagination, as he was in an environment where imagination naturally intensified. He turned back towards the banyan tree. This time he clearly heard a faint laughing sound coming from inside the water. The sound was very faint but so clear that Akash could no longer dismiss it as his imagination. His heart pounded. He shined his flashlight on the pond's water. At first he saw nothing, only ripples in the water. But when he looked more deeply, he saw a white sari-clawed figure floating on the water in the middle of the pond, where the moonlight fell directly. Akash's body cold. His rational mind was stunned for a moment. He took out his camera and tried to photograph the figure, but as soon as he tried to set the lens, the figure slowly began to sink into the water. In a few moments, it completely disappeared, as if it had never been there. Akash quickly lowered his camera and stared at the water, his breathing becoming rapid. He thought it might be light refraction or some other natural phenomenon, but his brain could not scientifically explain the sight. He waited there for some more time, hoping that the figure would reappear, but nothing else happened. The wind blew as before and the chirping of crickets resumed. Akash decided that he would go home and tell Raju about this incident. As he was returning home from the pond god, he felt as if someone was following him. He repeatedly looked back but saw no one. He felt as if someone was watching him behind every tree. Every hair on his body stood on end. He quickly quickened his pace towards home. He wanted to return home as fast as possible. Upon returning home, Akash saw that Raju had fallen asleep. He went to his own bed without waking Raju, but sleep eluded him. That white sari-clawed figure kept appearing before his eyes. He repeatedly tried to convince himself that it was just his imagination, or perhaps he was hallucinating due to fatigue. But that sweet jasmine scent still lingered in his nose. The next morning, Akash told Raju everything. Raju trembled with fear upon hearing it. He said, "I told you before, there's something in this pond. It's nothing but a spirit." But Akash was still looking for his scientific explanation. He started examining his recorded sound waves and pictures, but his recordings did not capture any unusual sounds or indistinct figures in the images. Only the mention of the sweet jasmine scent left a mystery in his mind. Akash decided to go to the pond again at night. This time he went with even more preparation. He took a temperature sensor and an infrared camera so that he could take pictures even in the dark of night. Raju tried 1,000 times to stop him, but failed. Akash advised him to stay calm and went out alone. This time when Akash reached the pond ghat, the environment was even more silent. The wind was not blowing and the chirping of crickets was not heard. The pond water was as still as a mirror. Akash turned on his infrared camera and set up the temperature sensor. This time he went directly to the previous banyan tree. When he reached the banyan tree, that sweet jasmine scent came to his nose again, this time even more intensely. He shined his flashlight on the banyan tree trunk. He saw that the alpina designs were even clearer, as if freshly drawn. The vermilion and flower petals also looked fresher. Akash was surprised to see some fresh jasmine flowers placed on the banyan tree trunk, which were not there last night. Akash felt a strange sensation. He quickly started taking pictures with his camera. Suddenly, he heard a faint crying sound coming from the pond's water. This time the sound was clear, as if a woman was crying in deep pain. Akash quickly focused his infrared camera towards the pond.
What he saw on his camera screen shattered all his beliefs in an instant. In the infrared camera, he clearly saw a white sari-clad female figure standing in the middle of the pond. A strange heat was emanating from her body, which was being detected by the sensor. The woman's hair was spread over the water, and she was crying with her head bowed. Akash's camera almost fell from his hands. He wanted to scream, but no sound came out of his throat. Every cell of his body seemed to be frozen in fear. He just stared at that figure. The woman slowly raised her head and looked at Akash. Her eyes were abnormally large and glowing, as if fire was burning in them. Her face was pale, and there was a hideous smile on her lips which made Akash's blood run cold. The woman slowly floated over the water and began to move towards Akash. With each step she took, a strange ripple was created on the water, but there was no sound. An eerie silence descended all around. Only the sound of that woman's crying and the thumping of their hearts. When the woman reached near the ghat, the wind stopped. The leaves of the trees stopped moving. Akash felt as if time had stood still. The woman extended her long, slender hand towards him. Her hands were abnormally long and white. Her nails were black and sharp. Her pupils were abnormally large, as if glowing in the dark. Akash's brain could no longer find any scientific explanation. He realized that he had encountered something beyond his familiar world. The woman took another step towards him, a strange red glow emanating from her eyes. Akash felt as if all his energy was being sucked out. His head began to spin. He felt his breath being cut off. Just at that moment, the loud bark of a dog came from afar. Then the sound of the morning call to prayer came from the village mosque's loudspeaker. As soon as the sound of the call to prayer reached her ears, the woman's figure seemed to tremble. A thick white smoke began to emanate from her body. The woman seemed to writhe in agony. A hideous shriek came from her mouth, which sent shivers down Akash's spine. Slowly, the woman's figure began to dissipate like smoke. In a few moments, she disappeared completely, as if she had never been there. Only that sweet jasmine scent remained all around, which faded away after a while. Akash stood rooted to the same spot, trembling with fear. His body was numb. He somehow composed himself, picked up his fallen camera and sensors, and ran towards the house. Back home, Akash saw that Raju was awake and very worried. Seeing Akash's pale face, Raju understood that something had happened. Akash told him everything. Raju, trembling with fear, said, "I told you before, it's a spirit. Do you believe me now?" Akash could not say anything. No words came out of his mouth. His rational mind had changed from that day. He began to believe that there are some things in this world that cannot be explained by science, that are beyond our comprehension. The next morning, Akash and Raju quickly left Shantipura. They did not want to stay in that village for another moment. But the soul of that pond and the woman's hideous smile never faded from Akash's mind. That incident left an indelible mark on his life. He never again dismissed supernatural events as superstition. A few months later, Akash completely stopped his research. He packed up his books and equipment, knowing that some mysteries were beyond his ability to solve. He could not sleep at night. Every night, the white sari-clad woman returned in his dreams with her hideous smile and glowing eyes. Whenever he slept, he felt as if someone was standing beside him, their breath falling on him. Even inside the house, he felt as if the sweet jasmine scent was lingering around him. One night, Akash was alone in his flat. He was tossing and turning in bed. Suddenly, he heard a faint tapping on his window pane. At first, he thought it might be the sound of the wind or some other cause, but the sound became progressively clearer, as if someone was intentionally tapping. His heart started beating fast. He bravely got up and went to the window. Pulling back the curtain, he looked outside. Outside was pitch-black darkness. He clearly saw the white sari-clad woman standing right outside his window. Her face was very close to the window pane. Her eyes were glowing, and there was that hideous smile on her lips. The woman extended her long, slender hand towards him, as if she wanted to pierce the window pane and touch him. Her pupils grew even larger, and an indistinct whisper came from her mouth, which was not in any human language. Akash felt as if his heart had jumped into his throat. Akash screamed in terror, but no sound came out of his throat. He quickly moved away from the window and collapsed on his bed. His whole body was drenched in sweat. He closed his eyes and began to pray. Just then, there was a knock on his room door. A faint sound, but clear. Akash became even more terrified. He realized that he was no longer alone in this house. The sound of knocking on the door grew louder. Then a faint moaning sound was heard, which slowly turned into the sound of a child crying. It seemed as if a small child was crying outside the door. Akash knew there was no child in this house. He did not dare to get up and open the door. He just lay in bed with his eyes closed, waiting for death. The sound of the child crying and the knocking on the door continued all night. With the arrival of morning, the sound stopped. After the sun rose, Akash bravely opened the door. There was no one outside. Only some dried jasmine flowers were lying right in front of his door. He realized that it was not a dream. The curse of Shantipura's pond of souls had followed him to the city as well. Since then, Akash lived a solitary life. He isolated himself from people because he knew that no one would believe the fear he had seen if he told them. He still believes that Bijli's unfulfilled soul still roams in that pond and occasionally reaches out for a new victim in her search. The pond of souls was not just a pond. It was a door to an endless mystery that once opened cannot be easily closed. In the deep waters of that pond, the suppressed sigh of a young woman still lingers, creating a new story of fear every night.